Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lauren Izo. And coming up in this edition, hundreds party on the streets of Tel Aviv violating restrictions as Israel awaits the COVID vaccine. Could Sisi be the one to make a deal? Local media reports that the Egyptian president wants to take a stab at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And get ready to deck the halls virtually. Bethlehem celebrates a scaled-down version of its annual Christmas tree lighting. Well, before we get to our top stories, we begin this edition with some breaking news. Reports this morning that a civilian helicopter belonging to the Israeli Electric Company has crashed in the Upper Galilee. Rescue services fled to the scene and the cause of the crash is being investigated. Okay, moving on now. An earthquake was felt in northern Israel over the weekend, its epicenter near the Turkish city of Alanya. The Euromed Seismological Center reported that the 5.3 magnitude quake was felt more than 600 kilometers away, including in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, and of course, right here in Israel. The quake hit a depth of 20 kilometers, the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority said, and there were no reports of injuries or damage. An Israeli insurance company facing a major cyber ransom attack say they will not give in to this kind of terrorism. Private documents, including ID numbers, licenses, and financial documents, were leaked after the Sherbet insurance firm turned down a request for 50 bitcoins, or almost $1 million. That was by a group called Black Shadow. As the week went on and the company refused to pay, the demand increased to 100 bitcoins and then to 200. The latest payment deadline was at 9 a.m. this morning. It is unclear as of now how the company has responded to the latest threat. The Gethsemane Church, sometimes referred to as the Church of All Nations, is a Catholic church where Christians believe Jesus was betrayed by Judas, one of his followers, and arrested by the Romans before being crucified. Over the weekend, a man was arrested for arson after attempting to set it on fire. More in the next report.
Israeli police arrested a man over the weekend for trying to set fire to an East Jerusalem church by the Garden of Gethsemane.
من قبل تقريبا نص ساعة ودخل وحرق الكنيسة وما انحرق كل شيء نشكر الله لحقنا الحريقة طفيناها.
The site is revered by Christians as the place where Jesus prayed before he was crucified. The 49-year-old Israeli suspect poured flammable liquid inside the Church of All Nations, police said, and then set it alight before the church guard detained him.
متخلف عقليا مش متخلف عقليا المهم العمل هذا عمل إجرامي عمل مش لازم يصير في كنيسة من كنايسنا اللي موجودة في الأراضي المقدسة.
Images showed a charred bench and a small blackened portion of the mosaic floor of the Catholic Church, which overlooks Jerusalem's old city.
كان ممكن تكون الخسائر كتير كبيرة لهذه الكنيسة. السبب طبعا مش معروف. الشرطة لازم تحقق ولازم تعرف ليش واحد دخل هذه الكنيسة علشان يحرقها.
A spokesperson for the firefighters said 4 teams of firefighters were dispatched to the site, but said the fire had luckily not spread throughout the church. Authorities say the incident is still under investigation. Nittany Manson, ILTV.
Well, Bahrain is backtracking on recent policy announcements that would have seen it label goods from West Bank settlements as made in Israel. The Gulf Kingdom's trade minister announced it late last week during his historic visit to the country, marking the new strategic cooperation that stemmed from the Abraham Accords. Now, the country's foreign minister saying after a conversation with the Palestinian Authority that the comments had been misinterpreted and that the kingdom will stand by the Arab League in its distinction between the State of Israel and its occupied territories. Well, there may be a new mediator for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, this time not from the United States, but from Egypt. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi reportedly telling Mahmoud Abbas that he intends to broker peace talks. During a meeting this week in Cairo, the Egyptian and Palestinian prime ministers reportedly agreed that the talks would be overseen by Egypt alongside Jordan, France, and Germany. The alleged Egyptian peace initiative was not included in official statements from that meeting. All right, Michael Barak is a senior researcher at the Moshe Dayan Center for Counterterrorism, and he joins us now to break down the biggest Middle East stories from over the weekend. Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So we just reported on Thursday that Bahrain would indeed label products made in West Bank settlements as made in Israel. Now they have retracted that statement. What is happening behind the scenes here?
So first of all, we have to see the things in a broader context because of the changing in the administration in the United States, because of Biden administration. Bahrain is interested to signal to Biden administration that the Palestinian issue is still very important. Secondly, we should remember that Saudi Arabia is a strong ally of Bahrain, and there is an internal dispute inside the Saudi kingdom if Saudi Arabia should accelerate normalization with Israel. And because King Salman is against to have normalization with Israel until there is a Palestinian state, Bahrain, so the Saudi king is preventing from that, and Bahrain is tries to signal to the Saudi Arabia that she shared the same thoughts as the King Salman, while the son, Ben Salman, the son is interested to accelerate normalization. So there is like an internal dispute inside Saudi Arabia that reflects also on the politics in Bahrain.
So do you predict that we're going to see some more backtracking from the Abraham Accords because of Biden?
I think so, yes. It also relates to other actors in the region like Egypt, Jordan. Yes, definitely.
All right, now we heard reports from Egypt that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will that he reportedly wants to broker negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians. Why now?
Again, it also relates to the Biden administration. Sisi feels ignored by the Biden administration. We should remember that Sisi is afraid that Biden will follow after the policy of Obama, meaning to promote human rights in Egypt and promoting the Palestinian issue. So Sisi is interested to show that Egypt is still a major player in the region and has a significant role in promoting these peace negotiations. And we should remember that the UAE is also now a very important actor in the region and can have a major role in this peace process with the Palestinians. So Egypt, under Sisi, is afraid that Biden will take Egypt out and will go to United Arab Emirates. So Sisi wants to have things on the ground. Egypt is playing a major role in that. Not only that, Sisi also wants to portray the Egyptian regime as playing a major role in front of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, because by playing this card, by playing that Egypt is playing a role in the negotiations with Israel, it can exert pressure on Hamas that Hamas should cooperate with Cairo and fulfill the dictations, the instructions from Cairo, by portraying Egypt as playing a major role in this aspect.
So with that said, do you think it's more likely that there will be some kind of an agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians with a Biden administration, of course, over a Trump administration?
It's difficult to estimate. All the players in the regions are trying to show that they are committed and obliged to promoting the discussions and the peace with the Palestinians. Now we can see only good intentions, but who knows what will be ahead? It's very difficult to estimate.
And there are reports, that the Biden administration is already in contact with the Palestinian Authority, already speaking to them, trying to get them back in the picture. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, Biden is definitely wants to stick to bring back the Palestinian issue back to the spot. But I think that Biden learned from Obama mistakes. Today, United States is a major, let's say, enemy or a threat to the region. This is Iran. And Donald Trump made managed to form a peace between Israel to United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. So now the reality is different from that was in the time of Obama. So Biden will definitely take this under consideration. I think he will be more clever in that aspect. Egypt of today is not the Egypt of 5-6 years ago. So, but yes, Biden definitely will try to promote the Palestinian issue, but it's more urgent to deal with the Iranian threat in the region.
Right. All right. We have an interesting few months ahead in terms of Middle East policy. Michael Barak, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, a senior Saudi prince is accusing Israel of keeping Palestinians in concentration camps. Speaking at the Bahrain Security Conference, Prince Turki Al Faisal described Israel as, quote, a Western colonizing power who are incarcerating Palestinians in camps under flimsy security accusations without justice, young and old, women and men. Al Faisal is best known for leading Saudi intelligence for more than 2 decades and serving as ambassador to the U.S. and Britain. Israel's Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi was also at that conference. Speaking following the Saudi prince, he called his comments regrettable, saying that they did not reflect the spirit of the changing Middle East. Okay, we are getting closer to the end of 2020, which is when Israel's government said we might start receiving the COVID vaccine. According to the Prime Minister, we could have millions even before January. Still, the virus continues to spread, and the authorities are at a standstill over whether to open more businesses up or shut everything back down. Nittany Manson reports.
Israel's health organizations hope to be able to vaccinate tens of thousands every single day, starting as early as the end of this month. The first delivery of vaccines from Pfizer will contain up to 4 million doses, enough for 2 million people. In addition, the health ministry signed an agreement with Mediator to triple the quantity of vaccines the company will provide Israel in 2021, from 2 million doses to 6 million, enough for 3 million people.
אני שמח לבשר לכם שחתמנו היום עם חברת מודרנה על אספקה של 6 מיליון חיסונים עבורכם. זה פי 3 ממספר החיסונים בחוזה המקורי עם מודרנה. וזה נותן לנו תקווה, אנחנו רואים כבר את האור בקצה המנהרה. אבל אנחנו צריכים לשמור על הכללים עד אז. המשימה שלנו, להביא חיסונים. המשימה שלכם, לשמור על הכללים. ואם נעשה את זה, אנחנו הולכים לנצח. יחד ננצח את הקורונה.
Until now, neither the Pfizer nor the Moderna vaccine has been approved by the U.S. Federal Drug Administration. Meanwhile, hundreds of people attended several street parties which were held over the weekend around Tel Aviv, with few social distancing or wearing masks. Partygoers say police did nothing to break up the gatherings, and similar scenes were also reported in Haifa. Another rule breaker, furniture chain IKEA, opened Sunday against government guidelines. According to Israeli media, it was fined 5,000 shekels, the approximate cost of an IKEA couch.
עדיין לא עומדים בתור, אבל אנחנו רואים כל הזמן זרימה של אנשים כאן לתוך איקאה בראשון לציון, אנשים שקיבלו הודעה וחרו על זה בוויינט היום בבוקר ישר הגיעו לפה. אני יודע שבפנים יש כבר כמה עשרות, אם לא נאמר אפילו 100 ויותר.
Still, even with all the restriction violations, Health Minister Yuli Edelstein says he will not propose a lockdown over the Hanukkah holiday next week. Here are the latest numbers. On Saturday, there were 988 new cases. 88 people are now on ventilators, and there are 336 people who are currently ill. The death toll stands at 2,916. Nittany Manson, ILTV.
As they say, art imitates life. And now art is taking its spin on the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first time, a museum in Israel will hold a special COVID-19 exhibition. Let's hear about it from the Haifa Museum's curator, Anat Markowitz. Thank you, Anat, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, tell us a little bit about the exhibit. What mediums does it feature, and is it only Israeli artists?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I am one of the curators at the Haifa Museum of Art. We are a team, and so this exhibition is actually a cluster of exhibitions, having 9 exhibitions all in all under the same headline, Spaces in Turmoil. We have only Israeli artists showing at this point. This is unusual for our museum. We're quite a large museum. This is because simply in the time frame, it was quite impossible to show any artwork from artists abroad. The exhibitions deal with the current crisis, which is obviously a crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic, but they don't deal directly with the coronavirus itself. I mean, this is not a documentary exhibition about doctors or patients or anything to do with statistics or numbers. This is an exhibition which is to look at some of their feelings and thoughts and experiences that most of the population has been through this time through the perspective of spaces, which can be architectural spaces, homes, psychological spaces, which is a very known and old theme in art.
Right, and as you're speaking, we're looking at a lot of the images from the exhibition, a lot of sort of isolation themes, coming back to the home, that kind of thing. I wonder, what do you hope the visitors that are coming to this exhibition gain from it?
Well, I really hope that the exhibition and art will allow people to, contemplate for a minute about these times that we are going through, about this crisis that we have been through, not just through the prism of the news and other, statistics, but more of a contemplative area where we can see that, yes, it has been a difficult time, but maybe there was some humor in it. In some of the exhibitions, you can see trying to be some, lighter perspective. So we're trying to show sort of really a range of emotions and a range of possibilities. And really, art allows us for a different way to communicate, which is maybe more, based on feeling and less sort of logically trying to, calculate this and that.
Absolutely, and I think you and I both know we're going to see a lot of beautiful art coming from 2020 and the coronavirus pandemic. Anat, thank you so much.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
For sure.
The lighting of the Christmas tree in Bethlehem, normally attended by thousands, was held on Saturday evening, and because of obvious COVID restrictions, only a few dozen were present. A small group of residents and religious leaders participated in the tree lighting ceremony at Manger Square near the Church of Nativity, where Christians believe Jesus was born. Others watched it virtually due to restrictions prompted by, of course, the virus pandemic. Bethlehem Mayor Anton Salman spoke at the event, saying Christmas is being observed this year in ways like no time before. And now, last but not least, it's time for ILTV's history and archaeology expert, Anat Harel. Today we are discussing an unexpected phenomenon in ancient Judaism, statues of naked women. Now let's find out why this is relevant from Anat Harel. This is Can You Dig It? Okay, it's time to welcome Anat Harel to the show. Hi, Anat. Thank you for joining us as always.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're talking about statues, small figurines made in ancient Judaism that are naked women. Why is this so significant?
Well, you may think it's significant, but actually it's not that big of a deal because thousands of these figurines were found from First Temple times, and it is a very common occurrence that households in Judea, in the ancient Judea and the kingdom of Judea, these households had little figurines. Many of them are women, many of them are a rider on a horse, many of them are of animals. Figurines were a staple in houses in all the kingdom.
Okay, and what is the significance of the female body during this time?
So we are not really sure exactly what the figurines mean, but experts say that maybe they are fertility goddesses, maybe they are talismans, good omens or good luck charms, or maybe they're guarding or protecting the home. The reasons people had those little figurines we're not really sure, but that they were found, and there were thousands of them found in Jerusalem, around Jerusalem, is a fact. We have found them since the end of the 19th century, and there are thousands of them.
Interesting. So it looks like they might have some kind of a mystical purpose. I wonder how this represents the way that, the Jewish religion has evolved over the years, because we don't see things like these days, do we?
Right. And so the way Judaism is today, all right, is not at all what it was like during First Temple times. What it shows is the reason the Jewish people have survived for 3,000 years is because we have been able to adapt to whatever times we were living in. So, for example, back in First Temple times, people, Judeans, all right, they had figurines. They worshipped different gods aside from the God that we have today. And we know that, even this past Shabbat, we read in the Parsha that Jacob, our forefather Jacob, said to his household and to all who were with him, discard the alien gods that are in your midst, and cleanse yourself and come with me. And what did they do? They gave to Jacob all the alien gods that were in his possession. So there are many places in the Torah that shows that people during the First Temple times, they actually had little figurines. They didn't only worship the one God, but all kinds of gods. This ended after the exile to Babylon. When we came back from Babylon, from Babylonia, all of these little figurines disappear from the archaeological record. And so the Jewish people have been changing. What we have today is not at all the sacrificial cult that was in the First Temple times. We have changed throughout the ages, and that's what makes the Jewish people such an amazing people.
So when did archaeologists begin to discover things like these, and in what area of Israel were they discovered? All over the place?
Actually, yes, because we, the Judeans, during the First Temple times, were not the only ones that had all these figurines. They have been found all throughout the Levant, the Middle East. But in the land of Israel, especially in Judea and the Judean mountains, and especially in Jerusalem, starting from the end of the 19th century, archaeologists have been finding in the ruins in their excavations little figurines of all kinds, showing that these were important and very, very common in the local households.
Wow, really, really fascinating stuff. Anat Harel, thank you as always.
You are welcome.
Okay, it's time to take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight, expect a chilly low of 52 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow will bring a high of 71 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 degrees Celsius, also partly cloudy skies. And now, just before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel.
اليوم احنا with me الكل بيطلع على دبي جينا عملنا دبي لحالنا تعال ابو سيف وين ابو سيف والله منور الشاشه وجودك يا غالي.
Okay, so I am told what's going on in this video is a group of Arab Israelis dressing up like they are visiting from a Gulf kingdom, either the UAE or Bahrain, trying to convince Israelis that they are visiting from one of those countries. And apparently there was an entire line of people that wanted to take pictures with them. It was a very, very nice prank. I hope they actually get to go visit those countries one day. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.27 shekels to the American dollar and 2.56 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Lauren Izzo. Thank you so much for watching.